Hey peeps, I hope you're all having an amazingly wonderful day, and welcome to the very first episode of a Webcomic Experience. So as $5 patrons, you guys are to receive exclusive access to time lapses as well as my commentary, but I was thinking of a way that I could send that off to you peeps in a more interesting way, and I settled on vlogs. So each month, you peeps will be receiving a video like this one that's going to be basically a whole walkthrough on the creation of Fireweed Moors. So all the nitty-gritty of what goes into making this webcomic. So let's go ahead and get started with the very first episode. Stage one was figuring out how the heck the page was gonna look. So I had a brief concept or idea in my head, and I started sketching out different ways the panels could be like on Photoshop, see if my brain was gonna surprise me, but I didn't feel like I was really in the groove, and I felt that I needed to go a traditional route. So I grabbed my sketchbook, a pencil, and did some thumbnail sketches, and I actually did find my sort of sweet spot with the page on like this little thumbnail at the bottom of the sketchbook. So I went back to Photoshop and did the finalized sketch for the first page. An extra little note here is that I usually don't take so long to come up with how a page will look because Fireweed Moors isn't scripted. So when I start drawing a page, images basically come from my subconscious as well as text. But for the prologue, the myth already existed, and I didn't want the myth and the panels to be polar opposites. So I needed to think about what images I wanted to use to sort of portray what the text was saying, even though it didn't have to be exactly the same. Throughout the pages of the prologue, the characters are within some ruins, and I wanted to draw reference for these ruins because they're based on a place that I actually was able to walk to and visit last summer. So this place is a 13th century building, which is considered a castle but also tower, which is really small, and I found it was really unique and it inspired me, and it was one of those things where as I was drawing the initial draft for the first page in the prologue, I was like, well, I was just inspired. I was like, why don't I stick it in there since I liked it so much? So that's why I sketched out some ink drawings of the castle to know how the stonework was around the windows and around the towers, and then I decided to beat the heck out of it so that I could make the scenes a little more malleable in the panels. We're finally at the completion stage, which is made up of many little stages, which aren't actually little, they're quite important, such as line work, color, which I got inspiration from Google and reference images and created palettes from, as well as shading, final text adjustments, and all that jazz. So in terms of the discussion, the way that I create Fireweed Moors and write it is the reason why I chose this prologue. So I'll probably dish out on this subject a little more as I write more of Fireweed Moors, but the way that I create the webcomic is that it writes itself. It's not scripted, but I knew or know enough of it that I could start creating the very first pages. This means that I have my characters, my themes, my super basic main plot points, and variable endings. And I'm pretty certain there's people out there who are pulling their hairs screaming, figure out your ending first. But it doesn't always work that way. Some people create stories differently, and even when you think you have an ending, you just don't know. Webcomics take so many years, it can change. But anyways, as I said, I'll probably talk about that subject more in detail in another episode. What this entails for the prologue, though, that, you know, the webcomic is sort of writing itself as I create it, is that I couldn't... Okay, I'll try and say this sentence. Okay, wait a second. I'll rephrase. Not only for the prologue, but for everything that I write in the moment that I do, I can't make any commitments plot-wise or in the story that I'd like to change in another part of the story that I am not aware of. This means that anything that I write, anything that the characters say, anything that happens in the plot, as I'm creating it in the moment that I am in the present, I have to make sure that I leave it open enough and almost like open to interpretation, where if I'd like to change something plot-wise in, let's say, a future chapter, I can do that without completely screwing up the plot.
Danke.
I needed a little bit of cat loving in this video. Anyways, to give you guys a sort of quirky example, let's say that Brenna has a tattoo on her right arm. And let's say that this tattoo is so important that it works on a micro level in terms of plot. So she has this tattoo, and then suddenly in, let's say, chapter 10, I'm like, I don't want this tattoo anymore. Goodbye, tattoo. And it disappears. This suddenly affects chapters 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because during those chapters, I didn't know that I was going to want to get rid of it in chapter 10, and it makes for a story that's not linear, that's not accurate, and that doesn't have any continuity. And if this tattoo were on a plot level, it could basically dishelve everything. So I hope that example kind of makes sense. So this means that this prologue is an adamant truth. There is no question or doubt about it. This is a part of the comic that I know cannot be changed and cannot be altered. And that's why I didn't even know if I was going to have a prologue. And then when I decided I needed one just to sort of set the mood and refine the story, I had several prologues to choose from. But let's say like prologue A was going to force me to choose something plot-wise in the future that I wasn't sure if I wanted. Or the same went for prologue B. I wasn't sure if I wanted what prologue B entailed to actually happen in the story. And that's it for this very first episode. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, and above all, thank you so much for all of your support. You'll be getting another video like this about all the stuff I create in March, next month in March, and at the end of this month or beginning of next month, you will also receive early access to a brand new TOT video, which will be about Photoshop tips and tricks, as well as a package of artwork and whips and sketches and all that kind of stuff. That includes work that's been created when I didn't even really have a Patreon because I was on hiatus. So yeah, all that good stuff. Anyways, thank you once again for watching, and take care.